Hi everyone, welcome to Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as Wellford Pearls. I want to welcome you to this place and welcome you to this community and welcome you to everything that we do here on this podcast. This is a podcast that is devoted to hand spinning and using your hand spun yarns and spinning and just everything making yarns. So welcome. I want to make sure that everything is working well. I just came off of work last night, so I'm just kind of getting back into the flow of being at home, and then I'm back in tomorrow. So it's been a little bit crazy. Hi to San and Alicia and Debbie and Kelly and Glenda, Sarah, Nicole, Eve, Bridget, Tammy, Erica. It's good to see you all here. Thank you so much for being here. I have some announcements to make before we get into the show, and then we'll run the credits and we'll sort of do all the things. Hi, Jennifer. It's good to see you. Hi, Bridget. There's been a lot going on in the news and on social media, and if you're from North America, your news will probably have been sort of overrun with what is happening in the States, but also around the world. There's been many protests up here in Canada. There was one in Toronto and one in Vancouver, and there's been other ones across Canada. It is a very uncomfortable situation that I feel myself to be in, just because I do identify as an introvert and somebody who's quite shy. But I don't think that this is the time to be okay with keeping ourselves in that sort of comfortable place. And I think that as a white woman, I think it's important that I speak up and align, sort of say, where my allyship lies and how I feel about some of the stuff that's going on, because I think that the Black women in our community in particular have been calling on us for a really long time and asking for our allyship and for our hard work, and we have just continued to say wait, and that sort of has translated into nothing happening. And I see their hurt, and I see their anger, and I see their pain. And I think as a white woman, it's not fair to continue to ask our Black friends in particular what we can do to help. We need to be talking to them about their experiences and listening to them and hearing them, and we need to be doing the work. We need to be breaking down these barriers, and we need to be doing the work of dismantling the systems that are in place. So as a white woman, I think a good place for us to start, if you haven't started, is to enter into a place of self-reflection, which, I have been doing and have been doing for a very long time. I was lucky enough to be able to take a couple of courses in my master's degree that helped to sort of start this work, and I need to continue to do the work. So we need to be thinking about what we've assumed about people of color that we've ignored. We need to be able to try to let go of some of those feelings and explore why we're uncomfortable talking about these things. And it's going to take years, and this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. And we need to interrogate those uncomfortable feelings, and we need to figure out where they come from, and we need to understand what it is about anti-racist work that brings up these emotions. And until we do that, we can't go forward. There are some awesome resources online. Please do not ask your Black friends to do that, how to do that work. You're essentially asking them for free labor. There is tons of stuff online. A place that you could start is the workbook, Me and My White Supremacy, by Layla Said. She was actually on interviewed in a I'm blanking out, but it was a Canadian broadcast this morning that she was on. And we need to do that work before we can truly be an ally. And so I sort of am calling the wool and spinning community to sort of begin to do this work, that we can have these conversations here, that we can bring this stuff to the forefront so that we can start to do this work, and recognizing that we're not perfect and that we're going to mess up, and that that's okay, because that's how we get better and that's how we do better. So I'm shaking because this is something that is very near and dear to my heart. And I hope that as a community we can go forward with this. If there is anybody in the community that would like to read some of these books together, if it's a little bit too scary to start to read some of the books that are out there by yourself, and you would like to have a safe place to explore some of your questions and thoughts and feelings and emotions and stuff that comes up, please know that this is a safe place for you to be able to do that, and that you can. There are a couple of people in the community I know of that would be willing to do that work with you and to have those conversations with you. I'm certainly one of those people, and I know of a few others that would be absolutely willing to walk that path with you. I think that we need to become those very vocal white friends. We need to be the ones in our circle of family and friends that aren't afraid to speak up when Uncle Tommy is making racist comments, and to say, you know what, Uncle Tommy, that's not okay. And you cannot say those things and be racist that way in my presence, and I will be removing myself from this. And I think we have to commit to being that person and getting comfortable being uncomfortable. My husband and I talk about that all the time, and I think it's long overdue that we apply that to anti-racist work. We can't be scared to speak out against racism, and we need to make it a part of our identity. And we need to use our own life to start. You don't have to be an influencer or a podcaster or a business owner to do this work. You can just be sitting around having coffee with girlfriends and something that gets said. I realized a few months ago that I said something with a friend she was talking about being the child of an immigrant and talking about that experience. And I identified with her as the experience of being an immigrant, and didn't realize until after that I had completely spoken over her from my place of privilege. And I apologized to her later, and we had a really great conversation about it. And it was just, we need to be self-reflecting. We need to be looking back. And those situations where we can look back and say, you know what, I could have done better, and I wasn't listening. That's how the next time maybe we'll check ourselves and we'll actually stop talking and listen, and actively listen. So this is something that I think that we need to continue to talk about, and I've written a lot of notes, and as white people, we need to be checking each other, and we need to be checking each other so that Black people don't have to continue to check us. It's not their burden to carry, and it's not enough to be sympathetic. White supremacy is an entire system. And so there are tons of resources online. And like I said, please reach out to me. There's a couple of other people in the community that have been real allies and are well along their path in terms of the work. And I know that they would be more than willing to help and to work with anybody who wants to explore some of these books and has questions and have emotions that boil up. These are very important conversations to have. Thank you so much, you guys. People are putting in the live chat some books that have been really helpful for them. Thank you, Sarah. So if you guys have any others, please don't hesitate to pop them in. And I think that not only has this space thus far been a very welcoming and safe space, I think we need to make sure that we are continuing to work to ensure that continues. And I just really appreciate that you guys are willing to have these conversations. I appreciate all of you, and I want to thank you very much for that work. We also need to raise anti-racist children, and that's a whole other conversation. And I think anybody who is a parent and has children, if you guys would like to continue that conversation in the parenting channel on Slack, I would really appreciate that. That's something I think that's very much at the forefront of some of our minds. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because we do need to get into the show. I appreciate your openness about being willing to hear me and to think about this stuff and to talk about it. And yeah, my heart is my heart. I'm heartbroken this week, and you can tell I'm a little bit flat. And it's just I just feel heartbroken for what's going on in our world. And I think that it's not time to sit down anymore. We need to do something. We decided to start a Tour de Fleece team. So I did sign us up as a wild card. And so we are sort of official, if you will, but the Ravelry Thread is in the Ravelry group instead of hosting it on the Tour de Fleece group in Ravelry. So the thread is in our Ravelry group. I will link it in the show notes, which are available at patreon.com/wellforpearls. And if you guys would like to participate and you would like to be a part of Tour de Fleece, please hop on over there. And if you're part of the Slack channel, we have a dedicated channel on the Slack channel for Tour de Fleece. So just go to the channels, push the plus button and search TDF 2020, and that channel will come up on Tour de Fleece on the Slack channel. And if you're not part of the Slack channel but you'd like to participate, please come. You're more than welcome in the Ravelry group. And like I said, it's going to be linked in the show notes. Kelly is going to co-captain with me. If anybody else would like to step up as co-captain, that would be wonderful. And we're kind of putting together some loose prizes to probably randomly draw towards the end of Tour de Fleece. The dates are also published in a Patreon post that I did just for Tour de Fleece. So if you guys would like to have a look at that and see if the dates work for you, please have a look, and I have linked that down below. I had published a pattern on Ravelry quite a long time ago, and it was I'm just going to pull it up really quickly so that I can speak to it properly. It was a toque design out of hand spun, and it was the wraps per inch toque, and based on your wraps per inch of your hand spun, you would then cast on that many stitches. I didn't have a very good name for it, so I called it the Simple Wraps Per Inch Toque. It's just shy of $3 US. It's a cheap pattern. Anyways, it's sized from baby up to adult large. It can be slouchy, it can be more fitted. Again, I will put links in the show notes for you. I know many of you already have the pattern, but what I want to do is go back and I am going to because Ravelry pays me through PayPal, I can figure out how many patterns were sold, and I can go back and go through the number of people that bought it and the Canadian dollars that they bought it for, because I can convert that into Canadian dollars. Anyhow, the lump sum and all proceeds from now on from that toque will be donated to a local charity that Mike and I have supported for many, many years, called Covenant House, and it's a house here in Vancouver. I was involved with them when I worked on the downtown east side after I came out of nursing school. And one of the things that I found really hard when I was street nursing was the kids that I saw. Many of them have dogs with them, and because they've left the family home because it's no longer safe, and they've got the family pet with them, and it really made a mark on me. And so as soon as I sort of had a permanent job as a nurse, I started giving to Covenant House sort of from there on out. So Covenant House is, their purpose is to serve all youth with absolute respect and unconditional love, and to help youth experiencing homelessness, to protect and safeguard all youth in need. So basically, they're a transition house for youth who find themselves usually on the downtown east side. They immediately meet the basic needs of youth experiencing homelessness with a meal, a shower, clean clothes, medical attention, and a safe place to sleep. And they are a safe haven from homelessness. They recognize the fundamental worth of every human being and create a safe setting where all youth, regardless of life experience or identity, are served without judgment. So from now, all of the previous proceeds from that pattern and all proceeds going forward will 100% be donated to Covenant House. It was something small that I could do, and we continue to support Covenant House anyways. And I just thought that this was one way that the pattern proceeds could go towards something that I very, very deeply believe in and have already been supporting anyways. I know it's a local to me organization, but it is something that I am invested in because I was working with them when I was doing the work that I was doing briefly back then. So thank you for your support. It's very emotional. It's not to belittle it, but all of this stuff is, I think, really calling us to action, and we need to do that. Liz, who runs Kingdom, oh shoot, what's the name of it? Kingdom, I love the name of the mill, Kingdom Mill, and now I'm at a loss for words. Kingdom Fleece and Fiberworks. I knew it was Fleece, something Fleece. Kingdom Fleece and Fiberworks, Liz. She's part of our community. She sent me a whole bunch of her rovings that she had pulled off of her carder that she's hoping to have spun up just so that we can show people what the samples look like. So I'm sorry that these are in a plastic bag. But she, I'm just going to put my cameras back because I just totally messed up my cameras. Sorry, you guys. Yeah, so she sent me all of these just beautiful, beautiful rovings to spin. And they're all these sort of tweedy blended fleeces. And so she is actually doing a series. These aren't part of this series that she's organizing, but it's called the East Hardwick Tweeds. And so I'm going to be spinning these up over the next week or so. It'll probably take me a little bit more than a week. And I'll share them with you on the podcast to show you sort of how they spin up. This one's actually my favorite. I just love this one. But she's organizing, she's been sort of making these and creating them, different kinds. I love this one, the grays. And if you're interested in wanting to spin some just beautiful pin drafted rovings from Liz, please get in touch with her and have a look at her website. I will link it in the show notes. Just gorgeous. So you could even take a whole bunch of these and do like a combo spin. Like you could either hold them together, or if that's too much fiber to control in your hand, you could spin one to one bobbin, spin another one to another bobbin, and then ply them, because all of that beautiful heathering, that would just be amazing. So if you're interested, Liz has a whole bunch. She's been developing these East Hardwick tweeds, and these ones aren't that specifically, but I am excited to get into them and to play with them and to see how they spin up. And I was really pleased that to help her and to do that for her, because it's a lot to spin all these samples, but it's really fun too. I just realized I don't think that my my webcam is working. I think it's frozen. We might not have a webcam today. That would be super annoying. All right, let's run the intro videos. I'm going to catch up with chat because I have been talking. I appreciate your support, you guys, in the chat. These are difficult conversations to have, and I appreciate you guys. So I think that I think the webcam is frozen. Yeah, I see it's on display capture. No, weird. Yeah, the webcam's kind of acting up. So I will have a look and see if I can fix it, and we'll run the credits. I think we've got some more housekeeping afterwards that's really brief, and then we'll get into some of the content for the show, because I'm really excited to share with you my gentle morning. So let's do that. Yeah, I think we've got a webcam problem. Bummer. Just doesn't want to work. So let me try one thing. There we go. It's funny how when we were playing around with the sound and whatnot this morning quite a lot, and we were trying to figure out some different stuff, and Mike was, the fans on our computer are quite loud, and so that's that humming that you hear in the background. And we were, and so Mike was trying to figure out if we should turn the fans down or if we should maybe just change the setup a little bit. So he was playing around with stuff, and I think sometimes what happens is things freeze and they don't like it. So anyways, I'm glad that I was able to fix that quickly. If not, I would have just abandoned it. So the webcam needs to take a breath too. Totally. Right, Jennifer? So, oh, thank you for continuing to post some book titles and some resources and whatnot. Yeah, that's great, you guys. Some of these I haven't even heard of, so that's wonderful. Thank you so much for posting all of those. Yeah. Hi, Lisa, Marla, Megan, Wendy. Oh, Megan, have you guys left yet? Have you been able to leave on your trip? Elizabeth is here. Jean, Alicia, Karma, Leah. Oh, it's good to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Dorothy. Hi, Dorothy. Oh, Diane's here. You popped in, Diane. I know Sunday mornings are hard for some people, so thank you so much for being here. So a little tiny bit more housekeeping. We've got our book club going. It's the Jane Austen book club. I think there is a book club meeting this coming Friday, which will coincide with the Wool Stream. And I know that Becca and I have been trying to keep them opposite so that there's something to look forward to on every Friday. But May and July have 5 Fridays, so it messes up the whole schedule. I'm really hoping that when we get back from our, well, actually, I'm not hoping. What will happen, when we get back from our trip in August, we are going to go away for 2 weeks in the middle of August, and then I'm teaching for the Knit City girls at Galliano at the end of August. So the live stream schedule will be a little bit different for a couple of weeks there, but we're going to try to live stream on the road. So we'll see how it goes. And when we come back, we're going to have sort of a more regular schedule with some of this stuff. And I don't know what the kids' school schedule is going to look like in September, but whatever that looks like, we'll plug in stuff as it fits and as it's appropriate and whatever feels right. And we'll kind of go from there. So the book club is the Jane Austen. We're doing Pride and Prejudice right now. We've got our yarn substitution content going. Our part 2 is just sort of in the process of being released this month in June. And we've got our 51 yarn spin along going. Everybody's spinning up a storm. And then we've also got our queries and explorations thread going. So those ladies and I met on Saturday last weekend. Was it last weekend? Yeah, it's all a bit of a blur right now. And we're going to be meeting again this month. And some of those snippets of those conversations will be part of the Wool and Spinning radio content later in the summer. And I'm excited to share some of that with you guys. Some of the questions that come Okay, I think we're back. I had to change out the cables. That was really weird. Darn. That is super hard. I wonder what happened. I didn't touch anything. That was really weird. It just kind of stopped working. So at what point, at what point did we lose the sound? Lost the sound. Okay, when did we lose the sound? Can you guys tell me when we lost it? And then I'll go back to there. That was really weird. I think I've mentioned before that I don't love the YouTube live streaming software. There's often glitches and whatnot, and it's just really frustrating. Book club. At the beginning of the community projects, we lost the sound. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, so right before showing the projects. Okay, so did you guys hear about the giveaway then? Right before the hat. Yes, right before the hat. Okay. You guys are so amazing. I just really appreciate that you guys are so like kind about everything. And the problem is the chat is over here and the OBS and all of the stuff is over here. So when I lose sound, I don't necessarily see right away. You guys sort of yelling at me, which I really appreciate. So it's just like one of those crazy things. Oh, I feel like there are gremlins sometimes, Karma. Seriously. No, didn't hear about the giveaway. Okay, so giveaway. Okay, so Emily Mom is the winner of May's giveaway. So she is going to get the other bat of the Frisian wool that I've been spinning for the shore cardigan. So she wrote, this is random number generator, post number 19. She wrote that she used to have a couple of Downish sheep Cheviot, and I loved to bury my face in their wool. It's so cushy, and for spinning, it is my favorite. I love the spronginess in the loft. It is just a good all-round fiber for me. I spin carded long draw and just go on autopilot with a smile on my face. I just love that. So she'll be getting one of the bats that James and I did for the Frisian. So Emily, if you could get in touch with me and Emily Mom, because I think Emily is your daughter, I'm assuming. If you could get in touch with me with your mailing address, and I'll reach out to you on Ravelry. And then in June, I'm not sure what we're going to give away, and I'm not sure what we're going to do for that giveaway. I'll create a June episode thread, and if you guys could pop in there and maybe, I haven't really thought about it, to be honest with you. Maybe just pop in there and share some reflections about some of the things that you've been thinking about recently and some of the things that you've been, thinking about with your spinning, with your knitting, with sort of things going on in the greater world at large. And we'll just kind of chitter chatter this month, and I'll do a random number. And I'll look through my stash and find something, because I do have a few things that I would like to pass along. So yeah. Okay, so this is the Made with Love Along. And Mairi shared this toque, and this is her. She's using Crafty Jack's Toasty and Tender. She knit an apple pie toque. It was going to be for me, but every round further I got, it felt like the perfect gift for a friend. So it will go in the gift box, and I'll knit some more for her family, and ta-da, gifts for the year sorted. The toque pattern is actually quite easy to knit, and the pattern is so effective. This is the second and will not be the last. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. I'll talk to you about that in Slack. So yeah, really beautiful stitch pattern, beautiful color. It's sort of that raspberry color that I love. I can't wear it, but I love it. So really well done, Mairi. And that is for our Made with Love Along, and it is in the Ravelry group that we are hosting to hold up some of our makers who've been really affected by all of this sheltering in place and the festivals and whatnot being closed and sort of things not running as normal. So the deadline to cast off is July 31st. So as you finish stuff, make sure that you're putting it into the finished objects thread, which is a chatter-free thread. Breeding Color Studies is going to be up and running again as of July 1st. And Tessa was working on her most recent organic Polwarth study that we just finished up. And this is her habitation throw, and it's just beautiful. So all of that marling that you see in her yarns that she spun, when she put it into the habitation throw, it just makes it look like watercolor. It's just beautiful. It just moves from that really bright graffiti colorway that we had in our braid all the way through to the graffiti interrupted. That's that beautiful sort of watercolor effect because of the white that was left in the fiber. It's just gorgeous. Really, really lovely. Gorgeous knitting. So thank you for sharing that, Tessa. I think she was working on that and finishing it up with working from home and being at home so much. And she was able to kind of catch up a little bit. Oh, thank you, Debbie. That's what Mike always says. You know, when you work in tech, glitches are kind of a thing. It's frustrating, but I know it is kind of a thing. So yeah, the stitches really set off the color changes. Absolutely, Jennifer. Yeah, it's just beautiful. It's, you know, I'm not a big blanket knitter, and I don't tend to knit that kind of stuff. But this actually kind of made me want to dig out my hand spun and kind of put a whole bunch of it together so that it would move through some sort of a gradient or some sort of a movement. I thought what a great way to use hand spun. The other thing I thought of too after seeing this was doing something on the loom and weaving through, keeping the tension a bit lighter so that you could move through a whole, across a warp, so that the threads wouldn't break, and not having it quite so tightly warped, but that you could move through some sort of a gradient, and then maybe have a weft that was one color, and it could be kind of more of a warp faced fabric. So yeah, really inspiring. Thank you, Tessa, and thank you, Mairi. So I actually have some finished objects to talk about, and I have some spins in progress. So I'm going to move the cameras around and put the webcam on. Now the question is that the right? I have to activate the new webcam link. Oh, you guys. It's been a good week. We've had a good week. The kids had a great week at school. It was really, really clever how they did it at school. They actually, so the kids were able, because of how the school is sort of made and built, it was built in the early 2000s. So every single classroom except for the second floor classrooms have a door to the outside, and they have a sink and a bathroom in them. Very, very simple, but a very small bathroom with a sink, and then a sink in the outside in the room itself. And some of them even have a double sink. So some of the primary classroom, actually no, I think all of them have a double sink, like an industrial stainless steel double sink. And then they have a bathroom in each room with another sink. So what they did was they invited the kids back for 3 hours in the morning, and they up to 10 children, because that included the kids that were parents whose parents were essential workers, because there were kids at the school all this time because their parents needed their kids to be at school because they were essential workers. So 3 of the kids in James's class had taken advantage of that because their parents are RCMP nurses and RCMP and nurses. And so, and we didn't, because we sort of pieced together stuff. And so when we were talking about all of this and saying the kids back and whatnot, James really wanted to go. Like we talked to him about it. We sort of went at it from every angle with him, but he really felt that he wanted to go. And actually, in hindsight, I'm glad that we sent him, because it's been really good closure for him. Anyways, we've had really nice weather. So the kids have been outside the whole time, and they've got all these outdoor classrooms at the back of the school, and they've been using them. And so the kids go to their outdoor door and they line up, and then they go inside, they wash their hands, they go to their desk, which is a table that's just for them with all their stuff on it, and they put their backpacks under their table. And they don't change their shoes or anything right now, because usually they would change back and forth between indoor and outdoor shoes, but right now they're just doing outdoor shoes because it's only 3 hours. They've been eating their snacks outside, and it's been so positive. The teachers have been amazing. The administration's been amazing. The other parents are incredible. And so far, Nora's only had in kindergarten there's only been 6 of them every day come back. But in James's class, there was 8 that came back, but like one day there will be 6 there, the next day there will be 7, the next day there will be 5, but in total there were 8 kids that chose to come back. And then in Nora's class there was a total of 6, but like on Friday there was only 3 of them there. So it's been really nice. And our class sizes are smaller at our school anyways, so James only has 18 in his class, and then Nora only had 14 in her class anyways. So about a third came back, and it's been really nice. And then they're doing a year-end finish up, so not this coming week but the week after. They're doing a year-end wrap-up party where the kids can come at different times, so each class has a time, and they're going to have like a little sort of gathering at the back of the school out in the field for the parents and the kids to have a chance for an hour to just basically say goodbye and have a year-end thing. So yeah, it's been really, really, really positive. A good first step. So yeah, I wanted to share this with you. I just finished it this week and it was so fast. So let's talk about my CVM. This is a CVM Romeldale, and it was in my stash for about 3.5 maybe 3 years. I had bought it at Fibers West, but it might have been Knit City at least 3 years ago. I think it was 2016, but it might have been 2017. It was the first year that Disdero Ranch was at our events, and that Lori was starting to come and bring her stuff. Anyhow, this is CVM Romeldale. It was a breed cross, not a blend. So this is actually a sheep that is CVM Romeldale. 2 ounces. I spun it long draw. It was pin drafted roving. This, I would like to get some more. I need to spin through my stash first and get through my stash a bit, but this was just amazing to spin. It's this oatmeal color, and it's a fine 2-ply fingering weight. The webcam doesn't like the light color because it's too similar to the table underneath. So actually I'll go to my big camera and then you'll be able to see it a little bit better, and I'll hold it up here. So it's kind of this oatmeal-y color, and I did nothing to the pin drafted roving. I literally just started spinning. I needed a bit of a palette cleanser after this big Cheviot spin, and this Falkland spin is not quite done. And so I just took this out and I just spun it up. It's just 2 ounces, super simple. I'll use it as contrast in some sort of a shawl with some color work, like with, like with something with color. And then I'll use this as the sort of background, if you will. I wish I had more of this because I would actually spin up enough to do like a yoked sweater, and I could have the hand spun in the yoke, and then this would be the body. But I don't think that Lori has any more of this, and I don't want to amass more stash right now. So I'm just going to save it. So it turned out really, really nicely. I'm really happy with how that turned out. I don't know what my yardage is. It's something like 300. It's just very fine 2-ply. Oh, no way. I didn't know that, Megan. I honestly thought they were 2 different breeds. Huh. CVM Romeldale are the same breed. It's just that the CVM are spotted and the Romeldales are not. So I wonder if she called it CVM Romeldale because one of them was spotted and one of them wasn't, the ewe and the ram. Maybe that's why she labeled it that way. Thank you, Megan. That's very helpful. Yeah, so that's it there. I made it quite high twist in the ply, and when it came off, it was wrapped. It twisted on itself about 3 or 4 times. It was like this. It came off the skein winder like this. It was very, very, very twisted. But after washing, and I gave it a really good thwack. Oh my goodness, I have to tell you guys. Okay, so I had this. I had soaked it in hot water with some eucalyptus. And because it was still a little bit lanolin-y, a little bit sticky. And so I had soaked it in really hot water with a little bit of eucalyptus. I wasn't worried about getting it I'm not going to dye it. So I wasn't worried about what's that word for dyeing? You know, when you, oh, you guys know, what I'm talking about. Anyhow, so I didn't put Orvis paste in or anything. And, so I had it in my hand, and the water it was quite hot. So the skein was quite hot. So I had pulled it out and put it in a colander, and just to get some of that excess water out so I didn't have to touch with my bare hands. And so I had put it in the colander, and then I pushed down on the colander to get the excess water out. And then I took it outside, and Nora's following me, and James is following me, scouring. Thank you, Kelly. I knew you guys knew what I meant. And so I didn't scour it or anything. Actually, it came out perfectly. It doesn't feel sticky. Like there's no excess lanolin left on this. It's not like, it's just beautiful. So just the hot water helped to dissolve a little bit of whatever was left on it. And anyway, so I'm holding it like this, and I sort of had my hand in it like this. And I took this skein, and I was holding it, and I'm outside, and we have smooth railings. They're wooden railings. They've been painted. My dad had repainted them a few years ago, and they're just very, very smooth. And so I took the skein like this, and I folded it in half, and then I started thwacking it against the side of the railing. And Nora's like, Mama, stop! Don't do that! And she's like freaked out. I was like, Nora, it's okay. I'm just thwacking it. This is just a different type of yarn. I don't normally do it. I just go like this usually. But this is a different type of yarn that I spun, and I'm just thwacking it to full it a little bit and to just sort of make it plump up a little bit and get that really lovely texture on the outside that I love so much, that woolen fuzzy look, you know, where you can't see the individual singles anymore because it's just this beautifully spun woolen yarn. Mama, you are beating up your yarn. It's going to ruin it. Why are you doing this? She was so upset. So I had to stop, hang it to dry. And then after she went tootling off to find something else to do, then I finished. It was so cute. Oh, and James has a really great riddle that he wanted me to tell you guys. I thought it was actually really clever. The kids have been coming up with knock-knock jokes and riddles recently. We've been reading The Hobbit, and so Nora's a bit young for it. She finds it, to be honest with you, she's finding it a bit boring, and it's because she just can't follow the story as well as James. But James just thinks Gandalf is like the bee's knees, and he thinks that Bilbo is really neat. And we showed him some pictures of what hobbits look like because he didn't really understand what it was that was like a hobbit. He got dwarves and he got the idea of a wizard, but the idea of a hobbit, like that, he hadn't been exposed to that yet. And he's turning 8 in a month. So we sort of thought, you know, he's a little bit young, but if he doesn't understand, we'll just abandon it and try it again next summer. Anyways, he's loving it. So, of course, there's the part with Smaug where they're doing the riddles, right? And so they've been coming up with all these riddles. So what is as long as yarn? And remember, this is coming from a 7-year-old, so it's not perfect. What is as long as yarn but not yet cut? I'll see if you get, I figured it out right away. I thought it was very clever. What is as long as yarn but not yet cut? Oh, that's awesome, Megan. I should get them to do it instead of me doing it. And maybe they won't be so afraid of me beating up my yarn. Yeah, taking out your aggression on your poor yarn. Yeah, worried about hurting your. They're just, my kids are very. They have these massive hearts, and I was like this as a kid too. And I found things like cutting down trees really upsetting, and I found like if people cut flowers, I found that really upsetting. And it was really interesting because James this morning was asking us if trees have thoughts and feelings, which kind of opens a whole Pandora's box about sort of sentient beings versus unsentient beings. And, you know, anyways, I won't go into it, but I was a lot like that, and I see that in my kids. And the funny thing is my husband is the exact opposite, and so he actually finds it really hard to navigate some of that. So that's been something that's been really interesting for us in our marriage, is figuring out like how to navigate some of that, because he's just like, well, they don't, and like there's nothing else to discuss. So it was really interesting. Not roving. Good guess. You're very, very close. That wasn't his answer. Good guess, Megan. A skein. No, good guess, Erica. You guys, I love that you guys are willing to play along. Let's talk, while you guys are guessing, let's talk about this camel silk. So I spun up the first bobbin. I could not fit any more on my very fast flyer on my Lendrum. So I had demoed spinning this last week. And this little skein, look at those colors. Aren't they amazing? I have just a little bit left. I have about, this is only 57 grams. This was a beautiful birthday gift from my friend Katrina a couple of years ago, and I never spun it, which is terrible. She calls the camel silk blends Orgasm, which I love. This is West Coast Color. My friend Lynn, she had a shop update online this past Monday. There's lots of stuff to pick from. So if you are interested in some of her roving and stuff, there's a 50-50 merino yak on there that just, oh my goodness, it spins like a dream. I did actually order a little bit. So anyways, I've been spinning this up on my fast flyer. I'm really enjoying the fast flyer. Like I said last week, it's not as chattery as I sort of thought that it would be at all. It's very, very quiet. I don't know if it'll become chattery over time, but so far so good. And I could not fit any more on the bobbin. And so I've got the second bobbin queued up and ready to go. And I've got the last little bit of fiber to spin. I probably have about, maybe just over an ounce probably to spin that's left. So that's pretty good. Maybe 25 grams left to spin. No, that's not right, because it's less than 50%. So this was roughly 60 grams. I probably spun about 2/3 of it. So probably about 20 grams left. So about an ounce. So not too bad. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And I'm hoping that I'll have this wound off onto weaving bobbins so that I can ply it, and maybe I'll have a finished skein for next week. I don't know. I'm keeping my expectations very low. You know, expectations plan disappointments. So I'm keeping my expectations very low. So let's see if you guys have the answers. As long as yarn but not yet cut. I would think of several answers. Roving, relationships, love, life. You could go on. You could go deep with that one. That's so great, Megan. Yes. Trees, very token. Yeah. The Secret Life of Trees. Yes. Love that book. And you know what? It's funny because actually, so Wendy's mentioning Lord of the Rings. So I actually have never read the Lord of the Rings. I never got past the first book. And, so Mike's read them several times. They're his favorite books. And I could not handle the Chronicles of Narnia when I was a kid. My mom tried to read them to us when I was about 9. And the idea of the kids going into the wardrobe and that there was a world back there just absolutely freaked me out. I also could not watch Bambi. So that just kind of puts it in perspective for you about my fears as a child. So we thought what we would do actually this summer is they're too young for Lord of the Rings. Like that just gets a bit too, it's just too complicated, to be honest. But we sort of thought, and they're too young for Chronicles of Narnia because I don't want to scare them. But we've been reading The Land of Stories, which we got recommended to us from Katrina. Her girls loved those books. And then we also have been reading and The Hobbit, and then we've been redoing the first 4 books of Harry Potter because I'm not quite ready to go on to book 5 because it gets quite dark and I don't want to scare Nora. And we've been reading the Faraway Tree series, and there was another series that we've been reading. Oh, the kids wanted to reread all the Winnie the Pooh books, and I have the anthology, so we've been rereading Winnie the Pooh, which are my favorite books. It shows you what a soft heart I have. So we've been rereading Winnie the Pooh. So it's been really nice to have the variety. Long as yarn, hair, the hidden life of trees. My family says I have been vegetarian since birth. At 4 years old, I told my family I would not eat dead things. 53 this year and still vegetarian. Well done, Debbie. So that's our story with James. When James was 3.5, he refused to eat any animal products. He told us that he was not eating anything that was an animal. So no eggs, no dairy. He didn't like cheese anyways, and which is weird for a kid because kids, that's usually the thing that parents can't get their kids off of if they are needing to drop dairy for allergies or for other reasons. He wouldn't eat, and he wouldn't eat meat. So that's actually one of the main reasons why we are plant-based, is because I didn't want to fight with them. He just decided he wasn't going to eat any of it, and he stopped. So Okay, I'll give you the answer. Lisa said a sheep. So you're Lisa and Megan. You guys are definitely on the right path. His answer was wool, because it hasn't been cut off the sheep yet. So I thought it was quite clever. Yeah, the Faraway Tree, isn't it amazing? Nora's done this whole series of drawings based on the Faraway Tree characters, and like Saucepan Man, and it's just been fantastic. Okay. That's good, Dorothy. Yeah, his answer was wool. The Story Pirate podcast is phenomenal. And the other one that we really love is Stories podcast. Yep, you got it, Diane. Wool, but still on the sheep, he said. Yeah, so Story Pirate is a great podcast for kids for stories. What's it called? Quiet. Oh shoot! Now I'm going to mention it, and then I'm not going to get the title right. I'll put it in the show notes. Stories podcast is a phenomenal podcast. There's lots and lots of like fairy tale type stories that they've adapted and adjusted. A couple of them that we've listened to over and over and over and over again, we have memorized. Yeah, there's a whole there are some great podcasts out there for kids. Okay, let's move on, because I feel like I could talk all day. So remember I was talking about this from Kinfolk, the organic Polwarth, the Anacortes Autumn, about 4 ounces. I had talked about wanting to do one skein with very slow transitions of color, sort of a traditional 3-ply, and then the other one maybe doing a 3-ply fractal. And so I had talked about maybe taking the braid and dividing it horizontally one time so that I'd have 2 batches of fiber, and then taking each kind of batch and stripping them down differently. So that's actually what I decided to do. And then I was going to save it, and I was going to put it on one of my wheels. And then I thought, you know what? I really want to savor this. I really want it to be sort of like a yarn that is thoughtful and prayerful, and is really thinking about Kylan and about just a number of people that I know that are going through cancer treatments, and people that we've lost, people that we've gained, friends that we've gained from going through these different life events that we are all touched by. And so I decided to get out my Bosworth spindle. This is, I think, my 25-gram spindle. I have an 18-gram and I have a 25-gram. So this, I think, is my 25-gram, because it is my bigger one. I just can't remember if it's exactly 25 grams. And I've just been like slowly spinning, and just doing a little bit at a time. I've been keeping this downstairs on the counter, which is probably not great for the fiber because I don't actually have it in anything. And I've been just sort of working away at it. This is a third of the half, and then I'll reel this off onto a storage bobbin, and then I'll do the next third, and then I'll do the next third, and I'll apply these 3 together. So what I did, I took, as I fall over, sorry guys, I took this is half, so I'm thinking I'm going to do this one as a fractal, and then I took the half and I stripped it 3 times. So this will be a bobbin, this will be a bobbin, and then this is the other bobbin, and I've just been really enjoying it. And if you guys want some video of that, I'll do some video of me spinning on my drop spindle and doing this. It's just been very gentle, very relaxing. Kylan's a beautiful dyer, so the fiber is just amazing. I'm kind of going for a light, for sort of a light sport. I'm not kind of worrying about what the finished grist is of the yarn. I figure, something that's sort of in the realm of a light sport, light DK, heavy fingering, I don't know, something in that range. I think right now this is spinning up. When you're not spinning on like deadlines, or it's not a specific project for something, it's kind of nice to sort of just let some of that go. Oh, I don't have oh, here it is. I have some Muga silk on my Magikrafт right now too that I'll share with you next week, that I'm really excited about as well. So this is spinning up to be, as a 2-ply, it would be about 16 wraps per inch as a 2-ply, and it would poof up because of the Polwarth, so it'd probably end up being about 14. So the singles are spinning up at about 22 wraps per inch. So it'll be finished at about 11, so a DK weight. So that's okay. Yeah. I just want some really beautiful yarn to work with. I don't know what I'm going to make out of it, but I just want a thoughtful, quiet spindle spin, you know? And actually, it's nice to have something on the spindles that I can take outside. So I'm sure you guys have been wondering what this is. This is my Odessey shawl. So I cast it on out of my, this is my Gotland Romney fleece that I ended up not knitting my Gentle Morning out of. And this is the stitch pattern. And I've had to modify it quite substantially because of I just don't have the yardage for the yarn that I need. And I cast on with bigger needles. So the pattern calls for it. This is a free pattern by Locatelli. Excuse me, sorry. And it calls for 5mm needles, and I cast on with 6mm needles because I just needed that movement and freedom in the yarn in the stitch, because the yarn is a little bit heavy and it's just hurting my wrist a little bit. So it starts off with garter stitch. It's a crescent shape. And then you've got this really cool stitch in there. Let's see if I can move my hands out of the way so you can see. So one of the stitches obviously is make whole. And then you do all these increases around it, and then you do decreases to sort of center the stitch. So really, really neat. So I'm on to the second color. And then the third color is here. So it's very similar, unfortunately, to my second color, but I think it'll be okay. I'm just not going to worry about it. This is going to be quite a heavy shawl. It's going to be very, very warm. I think it's actually going to end up being quite big, even though I modified the stitches and modified the number of stitches that I had when I started the lace pattern. I think in the pattern you need like 140-ish stitches before you start the lace pattern. And I started the lace pattern at like 60 stitches, and it's still going to be massive. So, and I tried to use up as much of the dark yarn as possible. And I think what I might do is after I get to the end of this and finish off the bottom of the shawl, I'll actually cast off in what's left of this dark yarn. That was kind of my idea. So I don't know, we'll see. But it's going really well. I'm really enjoying it. It's very, very fast. It's nice to have a bit of a palette cleanser like that. Does anybody have any questions about that? Just because spin, totally. Do you find your spindle spun yarn denser than your wheel spun? No, actually I find the opposite. I find my spindle spun yarns are actually a little bit less dense. And I think part of that is because the weight of the spindle hanging on the yarn creates like this tension. It creates like this tension in the fiber. And so and I find that I'm more consistent too, because when I'm drafting, I have like just a certain amount of yarn. I think we'll talk about my Falkland spin next week. I was hoping it would be done today, but I didn't get it done. So when I'm spinning, what not to do. I don't have a distaff right here near me, so I can't loop up my fiber. So when I'm spinning on my spindle, I tend to draft the same length every time. Like I'm just more consistent, and the weight of the spindle pulling on the fiber and attenuating the fiber as it's spinning and as it's adding twist. I find that what happens when I go to ply my yarns is they end up being lighter and loftier, because when you go to wash them, they kind of bounce back into place and sproing. And I find that they're more consistent, and they just have a certain quality to them that my wheel spun yarns don't. And I think it's the weight. I think it's those fibers being pulled as you're spinning that creates that. And then when you go to ply and then wash and finish your yarns, you're adding back in, or you're allowing that sproing and bounce to come back into the yarn. Yeah. and it just makes the yarns airier and lighter and loftier. I don't know about the support spindle spun yarns. I just know about the drop spindle yarns that I've spun on my Turkish spindle, my drop spindles. It's always been the same. And I know my friend Diana has found the same. We've had conversations about it, her and I. I often prefer my spindle spun yarns, interestingly. Okay, so let's talk about my gentle morning, because it is getting on in time and I don't want to take your entire day. I mean, I would love to, but you probably don't want to be here all day. Oh, I also have some yak silk on the Magicraft as well. It's this yak silk that I'm doing for our luxury fibers for July for our 51 yarn spin along. It's amazing. I'm spinning it over the fold, but I don't, but because of the short fibers of the yak, I'm actually finding that I'm kind of defaulting to, so I'm spinning it over the fold and holding it in my fingers like this, and then spinning it, but I'm kind of going to like a long draw sort of, because of the very, very short staple of the yak. So it's been really, really fun to play with. So look forward to that in the 51 yarns spin along vlog coming up in July. So this is my gentle morning. I love the fit. It's really, really perfect. It came out exactly the way I was hoping that it would. And yeah, thank you, Diane. The gentle morning gorgeousness. I thought you were going to forget about the elephant in the room. No. So I washed and blocked this last weekend after last weekend's podcast, and it dried really, really quickly. This was a 3-ply spin. It's 100% Cheviot. It was local to me. I had started off this project intending to use the Gotland Romney yarn that I just showed you. And what ended up happening is that yarn just was very, very dense and it felt quite heavy. And I think in hindsight, what would have worked really well was to take that fiber and actually blend it with something else to sort of add a little bit of weight, not weight, to add a little bit of sort of bounce and sproing to it. Maybe some, I don't know. Anything would have worked. A little bit of Cheviot. And so I ended up sort of pivoting during that project and spinning up the Cheviot into a 3-ply. And I thought I had a full pound, but in the end I had just shy of a pound. And I had done my gauge swatch and really, really liked the fabric that I created from it. And it just, like, honestly, the fabric just, I still, it's one of my most favorite fabrics that I've ever created. Like, honestly, this I don't know how much more, like what more I can say about it. Like, it's just beautiful. My row gauge was bigger than what was called for in the pattern. And but my stitch gauge was pretty accurate. It was sort of close enough. But what I ended up needing to do was, after I did my samples, so this was a 2-ply that I had done out of the fiber, and it was really beautiful. Like, I would love to have an entire pound of this spun just as the 2-ply. It came out, it's just bouncy and springy. It's a little bit sort of semi-woolen almost, because when I was doing a short backward, I'd do short backward and I wouldn't smooth really hard, just do it very, very lightly to get back to the fiber supply, to pinch, pull back, pinch, pull back. And so it just ended up being really light and airy, very consistent, really nice twist angle. And of course, after washing and finishing it, just because of the sort of down-like properties of Cheviot, it just, has that bounce and that sproing to make it just a really wonderful knitting yarn. But I ended up going with the 3-ply sample, and the 3-ply was a little bit denser, a little bit smoother. It wasn't quite as light and lofty as the 2-ply. It sort of has a slightly different aesthetic to it. They're both awesome knitting yarns, but sort of for two different reasons and different purposes, but the singles are the same. So what I think is so amazing about this is that you can create two different finished yarns from the same singles, because they have the same twist in the singles. And yet the finished yarns are so different. You know, this one's a little bit more worsted looking. It's a little bit crisper. It's definitely rounder. This one's more oval. Because with 2-ply yarns, the singles kind of lay next to each other. They don't wrap around like they do in multi-ply yarns. You know, this one doesn't have quite as much of a halo as the 2-ply has. The 2-ply has more halo. This one's just looks a bit fuzzier. The singles are a little bit fuzzier, where you can see a little bit more woolen looking, whereas this one you can see the individual singles a little bit clearer. But it still looks a bit semi-woolen, but not as much as the 2-ply. So just really interesting. This one feels, the 3-ply is definitely a warmer yarn, although the 2-ply would be very warm with all that air in it. This would make a great shawl yarn, the 2-ply, especially like a hap with lots and lots of yarn overs and open color work. This would make great cables, and as you can see, it's great for stitch definition. So, you know, same singles, but 2 different yarns, just fascinating. And then I asked Katrina to dye it for me. So this is her Silver Mist colorway, and you can see from the original fiber to the dyed yarn, there is a difference. When you don't see the original yarn, it's hard to tell that it's dyed, but it's a light gray color. It's got a slightly blue hue. This is just shy of 30 yards. So I was laying in bed this morning figuring out exactly how many wraps I had, like doing the math, because I have a 1.5 yard nitty naughty, and I'd wound this off on the nitty naughty for the finished yarn. So it's 28 yards that I had left over. So I cut it very close, for better or for worse. And then this just blocked out beautifully. So this last weekend when I showed this to you, this was all curling under really badly, and I was a little bit concerned that it wasn't going to lay flat from blocking. But as soon as I washed it and blocked it, it immediately laid flat. So I was quite relieved about that. These are the buttons that I chose. They weren't my first choice, but because they were a little bit bigger than the original ones that I had chosen, they actually are a bit better to keep it buttoned. And because I knit this with about 4 to 5 inches of positive ease, so positive ease is where you knit things a little bit bigger to give yourself a little bit more of a relaxed fit. It means that I can button it and there's no pulling, particularly at the bust. So I'll be able to wear it sort of more as a jacket. And then this is the back. So because my row gauge was different from the pattern, basically after I split for the back and the sleeves, so with a raglan, for those who aren't sweater knitters, you cast on up here, knit the collar, and then you put markers for the raglan increases. You work the short rows to build the fabric down, because of course your back neck is higher than your front neck. So you need to add usually about 2 to 4 inches of fabric in here, depending on your bust size, depending on the width of your shoulders, depending on the height of your neck, and just depending on your physical size, because that's really important. Because somebody like me, who has quite a shallow yoke, doesn't need as much as many short rows as somebody who has a deeper yoke. So those are actually really important measurements to know and to have accurate. So then once you divide for your body and your sleeves go on holders. And then because my row gauge was different, if I hadn't have started the shaping where I did, and I'd started it down here, the cardigan I wouldn't have been able to do all of this along the side and create all of this patterning that's called for in the pattern, and that she has charts for you and whatnot. And I think, in my very humble opinion, I think that this is what makes this cardigan and what makes this jacket so interesting. You know, it's not just plain stockinette. It's got a little bit of interest. It's nothing super advanced. It's beautifully written. It's very clear. I love the buttonholes that she gives in the pattern. It's just fantastic. So do you guys want to see it on? Yeah, I cut it a little bit tight, Megan. 28 yards of yarn left over. I was kind of freaking out a little bit. And the nice thing is I didn't have to shorten anything. So I knit the sleeves as long as I wanted them. I knit the body as long as I wanted it. I didn't have to make any modifications in that sense. But I really didn't want to have to spin more yarn for this. And I did cut it quite close, which I do not recommend doing. It's a bit stressful for one. I'm really happy with this. And so you can see how the collar comes up, and you can button it up if you want to. It's really cozy. The airiness of the cheviot means I can wear it next to my skin. It's not itchy at all. It's just got a really lovely feel. Hang on, I've got things buttoned wrong. Thanks, Megan. Put it on. You guys are so cute. Trin-Annelie is the pattern designer. It's a fantastic pattern. I highly recommend it. I think she's a Dutch designer. I'll just move away so you guys can see. So actually, when we're camping and whatnot, I kind of think that I probably will wear it buttoned quite a bit. And when we were taking photos of it the other night, I was actually getting so hot that I said to Mike, I'm like, we have to be done. It's too hot. So, yeah. It looks great with a flannel shirt underneath. I really liked that, which is like my uniform. When we're camping, I often wear a flannel shirt with a tank top underneath just for warmth. And you can see that the sleeves are the right length. I love everything about this. So this is definitely qualifies as an epic project. It's exactly what I wanted. It'll look great with a shawl underneath. So if I don't want it buttoned up to the collar like this, and I want to just leave it open like I had it on my dress form a minute ago, which is often how I wear my red one, which is my Amy Christoffers Willamette. I never say that properly. I can wear it open like this, and I can put a shawl over top for when it's cold, and maybe I'm wearing my winter jacket or something. Maybe it's the shoulder season like now, and you just need a shawl in the morning. And then of course, which, you know, this is actually really comfortable as well. Sort of like that. And then the other thing, how do the shoulders feel? Set-in sleeves tend to fit me better, but I really like this pattern. I think the sleeves are actually perfect on this. I think because this pattern has a shawl collar and you knit that first and then you start your yoke. I think because of the collar and because the yoke is deeper as a result, because it has to come up higher, because the collar has to sit like physically higher on you, right? Like it can't start down here. Like when you see pictures on Ravelry where the collar is like way down here, it's because they haven't made the yoke deep enough. So I think if you make the yoke deep enough and ensure that you have enough depth in the yoke after you do the collar, then it'll fit you really well and it won't be constantly falling off. The one thing I wish I had done, and this is just like, if I knit this again, I would do this. I would make the collar longer. I think in the pattern, the collar is like 5 inches long, I think. And if I was to make this again, I would make the collar longer. I think like another inch or two would be, probably 2 inches would have been perfect on me. That's the only change that I would make next time, is knit a deeper collar. Just so you get that like really comfy, you know, cozy kind of, you know. And so when it's unbuttoned, which is probably how I'll wear it most of the time because it's so hot, you know, it just hangs. It's just perfect. I love this cardigan. So if you guys would like to do a knit along, I was going to do a mini knit along for the yarn substitution content for this specific sweater in July. So if you guys, so I'll post that Willamette. Thank you, Karma. I'll just post that early and we can start it sooner rather than later. Because I wasn't going to post it until July, until that content goes for the yarn. Because this is part of the yarn substitution content, the how I spin content for July. So I was going to put up the spin along, knit along then. But if you guys want to, we could combine the simple something spin along, knit along with the gentle morning spin along, knit along. And you guys could just pick whichever one you want to do, and we'll kind of go through that process with the June content and the July content. And you don't have to be a patron or participate in that content to be a part of the SPAKAL, spin along, knit along. You can just, if you want to make the sweater out of hand spun and you want to go through that process with us, either the simple something or the gentle morning, hop in there. Right now we have the spin along, knit along for the Felix cardigan, or the Felix pullover, whichever one you want. But I'm actually thinking I might just do one big spackle. So you can do the Felix, the gentle morning, or the simple something, because I wanted to help you guys and work through those specific patterns, because those were the patterns that I used for the yarn sub content itself. So if you guys want to do that, I'll just modify that, and you guys can just hop in and we'll start that right away. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Thank you. I got this t-shirt at Knit City with my friend Mairi. And after I bought it, I actually wanted, I actually wish that I had gone back and bought a second t-shirt, because it's Poppy Kettle Co., I think is. There was another one that was gray, same neck, and it was a mason jar full of yarn with needles in it, and it had on it, was it I want to be a baller, or I am a baller, or something like that. But I got this one instead, and I guess it was just kind of where I was at the time with my dad and with some of the things that were brewing in the world. But I don't wear it a ton, because I've been kind of saving it, because I don't want the graphic to wear down or wear off, or basically I don't want to wear it out. So I've been I wear it only when I really feel like I want to wear it, and when I really feel like I need to wear it. Going back to spindling for a minute, Soulful Spinning, Lisa, she, on her podcast last week, was it last week, I think? She was talking and sharing all about her support spindles. It's not like an instructional teaching video, and she's very clear that she's just offering support and guidance for people. But I really enjoyed it. She's very thoughtful the way she speaks, and her videos are just very relaxing. They're really nice to watch. So if you want to know more about support spindling, go to the Soulful Spinning podcast or YouTube channel, because Lisa's got a lovely show that she's doing. Yeah. Some of my favorite podcasters aren't podcasting anymore, or maybe you're on hiatus right now. Like Stitch by Stitch, Kim never came back and continued to podcast after she decided to take a bit of a break, which I always was super bummed about, because I loved her show. And Jada of So Perfect Pearls, she doesn't have anything up on her YouTube channel right now, and I'm really missing her as well. So we need to start a list of like spinning specific YouTube channels, because it's hard to find shows that are specifically just about hand spinning. I think it's because we're all multi-craft-jewel and we do multiple things, which is wonderful. But it's nice to also find content that's just the spinning. All right, so this is me weaving. After I just say that we need to talk more about just specific weaving or just specific spinning, I share with you weaving. But these are my Pinwheel dish towels. So this was a very long warp. It was over 11 yards, and it was a 2-2 twill. The cream is Cottalin. So it's a 60-40 cotton linen blend. It was an organic Cottalin in the natural linen color. I think the colorway was called Natural. And then I put it with that gorgeous cranberry red, and basically I'm doing 4 picks and then switching colors, 4 picks, switching colors. And this is on my Jack loom on my Leclerc. So, oh, what is the yarn weight for the cardigan? It was a DK, 11 wraps per inch. Okay, good to know, Dorothy. So yes to the gentle morning, Cal. Oh, thank you, Linnea. Beautiful collar. Looks very nice. Thank you. Thanks, you guys. This sweater and the bobble sweater are begging me to go back in the knitting pattern. Good, Bridget. That's awesome. Yes, I do, Marla. I turn it inside out when I wash it. Yeah. Beautiful sweater. It inspires me. But then I realize how much bigger a sweater is than a hat or oven mitts. It's true, Alberto. Yeah. Yes, other spinning YouTubers. We need to continue to share our knowledge, and to share community, because the more of us that are out there talking about spinning, the hopefully the more other people will get excited about spinning and get excited about learning how to spin, and we can continue to share with one another what we know and what we're learning in our projects, and inspiring others and motivating others. It doesn't mean that everybody has to have a YouTube channel by any stretch, because that's definitely not for everybody, but it is really wonderful to see, to support and to see what other people are doing, and to lift one another up. Yeah. Just found a new one who started during the pandemic, Jillian Eve. Okay, good to know. Thank you, Alberto. So yeah, we'll have to start a thread in our Ravelry group for spinning people who are spinning out there that are really inspiring. Someone mentioned, yes, Crafting with Compassion. She does a lot of spinning. She's wonderful. She does a lot of knitting and spinning. She does some tutorials. That's right. Yeah. Good call, Alicia. So this is me weaving away. And basically what happened was, you can see that big roll down at the bottom there on the front apron rod there. It was already chocker block full of towels. And basically what happened was, I kind of figured that I would just, so every towel, the red stripe, to make them the right length, I needed to have 75 of those red stripes. So when I had this, so I was using stitch markers up the side and marking every 25 things. And so you can see at the bottom there, I've got that tabby weave, which is plain weave. And then I've got a dark thread in between, and then another 1.5 inches of plain tabby weave. And then I go into the pinwheel. So basically each towel was sort of that length. And so I figured all I needed to do, because the warp was so long, was to finish off the current towel that I was on, cut it off, finish them, get them hemmed, get them dealt with, so that I'd have the gifts that I wanted for the kids' teachers for year end. And then I would basically retie the front of the loom and finish off the rest of the towels. So I did that. I finished that towel, and then I looked at the back apron rod, so back up here, and I realized that I had the brown paper was wrapped around probably about five more times, maybe 7. I couldn't really tell. So I figured I probably only had 3 or 4 more towels to weave anyways. So I forced myself to finish it. So I just wove and wove and wove and wove this past week until it was done. So every time the kids were playing, every time the kids were settled, every time I had 5-10 minutes, I wove. And I got it done. So yeah, you can see me counting there and putting the row marker in. Do you guys have any questions about this? Oh, thank you, Erica. I feel like I've really gotten into a good rhythm with it. I feel like I've really kind of found, especially on this loom, it's so natural. I feel like being 5'5" at the Leclerc, this is a nihilist too. I feel like I'm just in a really good place. I can perch on the edge of the weaving bench. I have a Leclerc weaving bench, and I'm just it's just kind of, everything works. I'm way more comfortable at this loom than I am at my compact. I find the compact is, I'm not as smooth, and I don't get into quite the same groove. that I can get into on the jack. I wish it was a counterbalance, countermarch, but I'm not gonna buy a new loom or replace this loom by any stretch. It's a great loom. It'll probably service me for many, 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 many years. And I'm just so pleased to have it that I'm just gonna keep enjoying it and keep using it. I did have selvage threads on either side. I wish I had doubled them up and had 2 on either side, because they did break a couple of times. And 2 would have just given me a little bit more thing. Can you use yep, you can use shuttles on a rigid heddle. Yep. My friend Diana uses shuttles, and she can actually weave very quickly on her rigid heddle. I used to mainly use a stick, but I think now being so comfortable on a floor loom, I think that I probably would switch to shuttles now on a rigid heddle, and I would probably use this little. This is the blue shuttle. There is one of the shacked shuttles that they released for the 50th anniversary. It was a gift from Felicia, which was just really lovely, and that it's smaller and it uses the smaller bobbins, and I think I would probably use that on my rigid heddle. And I have 2 Ashford ones too that are small like that work really, really well. They do move quickly. Yeah. Yeah, it's true, Marla. Yeah, my biggest problem with doing live is that I'm busy learning and I don't have time to talk. So true. Okay, so I will switch the cameras around and I'll show you the finish. So this is what Mike was, I posted in the Slack channel this morning that Mike was ironing for me. He loves to iron. So these are them ironed and finished and off the loom. And actually the camera's blowing them out. So let me show you from, I'll hold them up. So I don't actually know exactly how many I have. They're nice and big, and so I have 1, and I was really worried about the red bleeding when I went to wash these in the washing machine. So I did put a color catcher in, and they came out no problem. I threw them in the dryer afterward. And like I said, this is a 2-2 twill. I set it at 18 ends per inch, which is a little bit open for 2-2 twill. But I really liked the fabric that I had done when I was sampling on another warp, and so I wanted to stick with that. So I'm not exactly sure how many I have here. I think I have 8 or 9, but I'm not totally sure. And I don't want to get my hopes up that I have more.